Thank you, Pedro, for the introduction, and thank you all for the invitation. So today I will speak about how to write the excellence part on the Marie Curie application. As Pedro was saying, it accounts for 50% of all the score, but you have to also focus on the other parts. I guess it's the easiest or the most common part of the application if you're used to, or if you had to write for other fellowships or other kind of projects. But also, since I'm doing it in the UK, I don't know if there's anyone that's planning to apply to go to the, come here to the United Kingdom. Just ask whatever questions you have, because it might be a bit complicated depending on the situation between the government and the European Commission. So as I've said, the excellent part, as Pedro mentioned also, it's more about talking about the project, about yourself, about the supervisor, and trying to sell what you're going to do, why it's important, and what are you trying to achieve. But the first thing that the Marie Curie application wants you to do is to have an acronym, like a short and clear word that describes most of the project. It has to be something catchy, and it should recapitulate the project. It can sometimes be difficult, but if you are in communication with your host lab and your supervisor, you'll end up finding something for sure. As an example, my application was looking for new genetic drivers that could be involved in cholangiocarcinoma metastasis. So it was kind of easy, and we made it short to mutastasis, as in mutation and metastasis. So in the first part, you're asked to describe the project, the objectives, and also this is a new thing compared to previous applications. They went to beyond the state of the art. So what you have to do is prepare an excellent state of the art, talk about the background of what it's known, give a bit of context, why the project is important, what's your main hypothesis, and what are the questions to be answered. If you have preliminary results, or if your supervisor has something, you should definitely include it so that it gives strength to the proposal. But what does it mean to go beyond the state of the art? So what I did in my case was try this small table, because I thought it was going to be easier for the reviewer to see, is try to see what's the state of the art, what's currently done, and how could we go beyond that? What's the originality of our proposal, and what are we trying to do? So in my case was more like, whatever we're doing now, it's more on primary tumor, try to go to metastatic drivers, oncogene-driven models, and now we're gonna be based on patients-derived mutations, or like a library derived from patient data, and how not only cancer cells, but also the microenvironment. So as you see, it's trying to make it easier to the reviewer, make it clear what are we trying to do as an innovation to the current state of art. So in this part, you also have to establish what are the objectives of your project, and they should follow the SMART criteria, as in they should be specific. For example, later in the work plan, you should definitely show what are like what are your plans, what are the specific things your goals are. They should be measurable. You should show the deliverables, but like how they can be achieved. They have to be achievable, as in they have to be feasible. You can be able to do it in the time frame you have, but also you have to estimate the risks and contingency plans that should be discussed later. They should be relevant, and again, you have to be aware of the time you have to do them. So later on, you have to establish and talk about the methodology. You have to emphasize about the interdisciplinary nature of the project. If you're doing genetic engineering, bioinformatics, if you're working with chemists, whatever you need, try to emphasize how the collaboration and how the different disciplines are going to come on together. A very important thing that has their own section is the gender dimension. And in order to correctly address this issue, there's like a link, like a guideline to tell you about it. As an example, if you're using patient data, you should mention something like you're going to do a cross-sectional study based on sex, age, or race. If you're using cell lines, you should mention you will use cell lines from male and female people. If you're using animals, again, you should consider this. And another important aspect is to have a good data management plan, and stating how the data will be generated, collected, who will have access, and if some things will be restricted, if they're going to be available in public repositories, and also what legal requirements you're going to follow. Again, you'll also have to talk about not only the project, but also your supervisor there. It's important to you'll have the CV. You'll be in constant communication with the principal investigator. So, oh, sorry. Yes. So this is also not supervisor, but also yourself. Sorry. So you have to talk about yourself, like what papers you've published, what prizes you've got. If you have people working with you. But also like your supervisor in the host lab you should have information about him, about what papers are published, different projects they have been involved in, how many cited publications, if they have any awards, if they have important collaborations, national and internationally, if the PhD students or postdoctoral researchers they have in the lab have been awarded with different fellowships, if they're still in science now, and so that you can show the reviewers that it is the ideal candidate for you to go there to carry out your project. And again, the Marie Curie Fellowship, they value a lot like how you are going to help them and how the host lab's going to help you make the perfect match to make the project feasible, and how is it going to be successful. So there's this part they ask you to write a two-way transfer on how you could help them and they could help you. So it's important not to only focus on the scientific activities, but also on transferable skills and open science, networking, communication. So what I did in my case was to do like a sort of a table, because it make it easier to see, I think. You could also write it all through and you go different parts. And this was like how the host lab could help me in the project. Like you have research skills, but also like learning about handling new equipment, new techniques, increased communication skills, organizational skills and networking. But also on the way back, like what are you getting to the host lab? What's your expertise? How you can help the project to go on? So you have like, what are you an expert on? Like what's been your main thing during your PhD? Your network, how you can communicate whatever you're gonna deliver. So the important thing is training. You have to think about the proposal, think it over with your supervisor, and try to see what's best in each case. And finally, what I was mentioning before, yes, you have to talk about yourself. You have to say what you've done, if you've done short stays, if you've been abroad, if you've been attending to different courses or conferences, if you have any teaching experience, supervision experience with master students, even like summer students. Also, if you've been collaborating in different projects, so you have multitasking skills, And of course, if you've published already or you're about to publish, whatever you need. So this is mainly my part. If there are any questions asked, I'll ask them later.